Hello and welcome to Stress Management. My name is Becca Smith and I'm the Assistant Director at the Counseling Center on the Armstrong campus at Georgia Southern University. Welcome to this presentation. We are going to go through a lot of ways to understand stress and how to better cope with it. First, if you are a Georgia Southern student, staff, or faculty, please know that the Counseling Center has a website on the Georgia Southern web page, and so you can go to our counseling center website and there are a ton of resources for telemental health. There's ways to access how to make an appointment if you need to, and many other resources that we offer. So today I'm going to be talking about stress management, and some of the objectives that we're going to be going over is really increasing your understanding of the impact stress has on your performance, learning more advanced strategies to manage stress throughout the semester, and utilizing effective strategies to manage your time and stress. So before we really dive in, I want you to understand that stress is natural. It's positive. Sometimes we need a little stress. Without a little bit of stress, we wouldn't even get up out of bed. We wouldn't really even study for the test. We wouldn't be doing many things. So we need a little bit of it. It keeps us alert. It creates energy and motivation. But if we build up too much stress in our system, it really does start to negatively impact us. For some people, they feel very out of control. They feel like they can't cope or keep up, can really interfere with concentration, and it also causes physical distress in our bodies. So I like this little picture on the screen. You see this cat, he is reacting. And so what I want you to understand is that when you get really stressed or really anxious or upset, what happens is your brain basically says, we don't need to think this through. We don't need to understand what's happening. We just need to react. So it sends a ton of energy, blood, oxygen to your body. So that means your IQ kind of drops, on average about 20 points. And so you aren't thinking clearly. You aren't being able to critically answer questions or focus. And you can see what happens to this cat is he runs into a wall because he's not really thinking. He's afraid, he's stressed, and then he just reacts. And then he ends up doing something that's actually harmful to him. So the biggest thing I can tell you, and we're going to be repeating this over and over in this presentation, is really how do you get that oxygen back to your brain? By slowing down and taking a deep breath and trying to get some of that IQ point, those IQ points back. So the prefrontal cortex is where we focus. This is where a lot of our concentration is. That's where it lives on our brain. And like I said, the brain will divert that energy down here. And so we feel very tense. We feel like we want to do something. That's why people throw things, punch things, stomp around, slam doors. It's because your body is full of a lot of excess energy. And again, it just wants to do something. It doesn't want to think about it. And so we make a lot of bad choices, or we do things we regret later, like not study for that test, or our mind goes blank during a test, right? And then that causes more stress. And so the biggest thing is to be able to calm yourself, calm your brain, calm your body in order to better function. So this is how stress is really impacting your system. So again, just a little bit more deeper dive in. So how it really affects our whole system is physiologically. It is affecting our body. So when you get really stressed, that's why you have that racing heart. People's stomach gets really sore. People before a big race or a big competition will throw up even. That's the effects of stress. Some people will sweat a lot or feel really tired. There's a lot of different ways that your body will process the stress. Some people even get really sore in their joints, in their hands or their knees, or they'll get headaches. Just know that it really does impact our bodies in a negative way if we endure too much stress over time. Emotionally, some people will find that they're usually pretty steady, status quo, and then all of a sudden they're crying. They're like, this is not normally me. Or they become, again, really tense, overwhelmed easily. People are like, why are you overreacting? I don't understand. And the person themselves is like, I don't know, I'm just this is just happening to me. And so you feel very much not in control of the situation. Cognitively, I kind of explained, as your brain is diverting that energy, you can't remember things very well. Your decision making goes down and your concentration. So it really impacts our brain as well, because again, it's telling ourselves that we're in a dangerous situation. We don't really need to think this through. We just need to go fight or flight. And therefore it really impacts the way our brains function. And when we're going to school or working, we really need our brain. So again, reducing stress really will help you focus better. Behavior. Some people are procrastinators by nature, and we're going to talk about that at the end of the end of this session, a little bit about time management. Some people, regardless of stress, their brain just likes to procrastinate or wait, likes to be under pressure. But for some people, they may never be a procrastinator, and then all of a sudden they're waiting till the last minute. Other people get a little bit more controlling over things. They like to have everything a certain way, and if something changes, they don't manage that very well. That's not normal for them, but under stress, they become a little bit more, like I said, controlling. They need that control in order to function. So just be mindful that it can change your behavior in ways that for one person, it could change it in one way. For someone else, it changes it a different way. So somebody else could be really tired all the time. For another person, they can't sit still and they're cleaning all the time. So again, it's just a change in behavior due to the effects of stress. Another thing that I really want to explain, again, what's happening in our system is that stress really affects our positive versus negative thinking, and you can get in a really bad habit. So I don't have a PhD. I am a licensed professional counselor with a master's degree, but I love reading research and I love reading other people's studies. So I did read a study back in the day that these psychologists put people in different rooms, and they did this over and over and over to have it be evidence-based. And they had some people watch, we would say, like a more negative, emotionally charged video. Some people watched neutral, and some people watched a very more positively emotionally charged video. So they split, like 15 people watched a video that had more anger in it, 15 people watched a video with more fear-based in it, 15 people watched a neutral, nothing was really happening, good or bad, 15 people watched a different video, same thing, good, nothing good or bad, and then 15 people watched a video that was more calming, and 15 people watched a video that was more happy, pleasant feeling for like 30 minutes. And then after they watched that video for that length of time, they were given some critical thinking tests, problem solving, like creativity. And over and over and over again, what they saw is the people who had watched that negative, either fear or anger, were kind of stuck in those emotions, and they couldn't think past that. They had the least amount of answers. They had the least amount of ideas. And they said after, it was like, I was clouded, like my brain was still thinking about that fear. It's like, if you watch a scary movie and you don't normally look behind your shower curtain when you go into the bathroom, but then you're like, like all of a sudden you're stuck in that emotion for a certain amount of time after you've been exposed. And so you might do things that normally you wouldn't do. So that's what was happening. They couldn't critically think. The neutral people over and over again did about average. And these people that only watched like a pleasant, like a calming or kind of a happy video for 30 minutes were able to be a lot more creative. It increased their ability to see options. It was like, oh, okay, we could do this, we could do that, we could do, And so there is that power of positive thinking. Now just know that if you are if you have been diagnosed with depression or anxiety, you already have some of that fear, watching a 30-minute video isn't going to change. But again, if you're just under stress and you expose yourself to more positive things coming in, it can change the way you think for a certain amount of time afterwards. Same thing if you keep exposing yourself to fear-based thoughts, angry thoughts, it affects you for a certain time period afterwards where you cannot critically think well. And some people are in really bad habits of thinking negatively on a constant basis. It does take over your mood. It does take over your behavior. The thing I say at the end of this slide is don't give up. It is hard to change. So it's like when people come in to counseling, I always tell them this is like learning a new language. It's really difficult at first. If you came in here to try to learn Spanish, I'm not going to make you fluent in Spanish just a few sessions. So people that are learning Spanish, it's really difficult in the beginning. It doesn't feel genuine. The words don't make any sense. It's hard to remember. You want to default back to your native language, which is English. The same thing when you're in a habit of negative thinking or stressful thinking, to try to think more calming thoughts, to try to think more positive thoughts is very difficult. It doesn't feel genuine. When you try to encourage yourself, it just feels like you're saying words that don't make sense. They don't resonate. And so people give up like, okay, I'm just not a positive person, or I'm just going to be a stressful person. And I tell people, if you continue this throughout, time, 6 more months, you are better at it. A year from now, you're better at it. When you're 30 years old, you are much better at it. So I always tell people this is a lifetime change. If you start practicing some of these things that I'm talking about today now, you will get better at it. So don't give up, because it is frustrating. It is hard, and you will divert a lot more to the stress and the negative thinking if you've been in that mode for a while. So I always tell people, I encourage them, this is difficult, it is hard, but it's not impossible. And you can let people help you. So either through the internet, chat groups, reading things, doing certain things that really will help you stay on track. Not everybody has to come in and see a counselor. That's why we're doing these videos, because sometimes just watching something like this can be really helpful. So I put this little cartoon up. It's from Hyperbole and a Half. It's a book that this girl had written. Her name is Allie, and she kind of writes about herself. And I like it because she really breaks it down, like real. So how your brain is kind of split, okay? When you get really stressed, there is a part of your brain that's trying to push you to function. But once you've passed this threshold, your body, like I said, loses motivation. It just doesn't want to do anything. So it's very frustrating because there's a part of your brain that's like, stop it, stop being sad, or get up and go do your homework, or you need to get this project done. And the other side of your brain is laying on the couch or the chair like, meh, I don't want to. So just know that stress has that much of an impact where you're going to be fighting with yourself. And it's very frustrating to be in this state that part of your brain's like, you have to do this. And it's putting actually more pressure on you. And the more pressure sometimes you put, the opposite effect happens. And so it's trying to find that balance. When you can bring that stress down, you actually can find that motivation. So a lot of people start to get really angry at themselves. It can have the opposite effect. It's like, if I'm trying to hold on to someone's hand because I don't want to lose them in a crowd, great. But if I hold on to their hand too tight because I'm really afraid to lose them, they're actually going to be like, let go of me. They're going to want to pull their hand away, and I might inadvertently push them away from me because now I'm holding on too tight. So it's kind of paying attention that if I don't want to lose somebody, I want to hold on, but I want to be careful, because if I hold too loosely, I'm going to lose them. If I hold too tight, I'm also going to probably lose them. And it's the same thing with our brain. We don't want to push too hard or not enough. And just know this is not an easy balance, but it's something that with practice you can kind of find where your sweet spot is and how hard to push yourself. So the other thing I really like is baby goats. So for me, if I need a little break, if I'm getting a little bit of stress, I'm a very visual person, and I need to watch. And these little goats playing with each other, and they're just so happy and relaxed. They don't have a care in the world. Kind of brings my blood pressure down a minute. Some people like to watch other things, or they like to write or paint or do other, like go outside. We're going to talk about some of those things. That's what we're going to get into next. And just know there's lots of different ideas on how to manage stress, and not one thing works for everybody. So Rebecca, baby goats works. It's very helpful for me to just kind of take myself down a notch and not take myself too seriously sometimes. Okay, break time over. Okay, so common sources of stress. For most students, what they're experiencing quite often, what I hear from people is classes grades are number one. Right underneath that is money and financial stress. It's very rare for a student to be just financially wealthy in college and have the money to do whatever they want while going to school. Most of you guys are going to school and working and trying to balance it all and not having a lot of money and building up loans. It's stressful. Relationships also, I mean, again, friendships can be complicated. Romantic or intimate relationships can be complicated sometimes. Sometimes they're a very good source of comfort and support, but sometimes they're also contributing to our stress because not everything goes perfectly with everybody. Some of you guys also have family issues going on at home. Some of you guys are living at home and in it while trying to go to school. Some of you guys are away from your family and feeling guilty that you're not there to help. So again, just know that those are also contributing. Job, again, work-life balance, worrying about the future. And for some people right now with COVID-19, really working, on worrying about your health and worrying about like becoming infected, or what happens if you do get sick, or the guilt of what if I get someone else sick. So not everybody's worried about their health at this time, but it has gone up. So just know that we do have a lot of stressors happening, and us as counselors understand what you're going through. And again, you can come here for support. We can listen, provide you some encouragement and some tips. So getting into tips, these are the things we're going to talk about now and to help you reduce stress. So we've kind of hopefully helped you understand what stress does to your body, how it contributes, how it impacts you. So now hopefully you're motivated to want to reduce that stress, correct? Okay, so we're going to review a little bit of self-care, relaxation, mindfulness, and time management. So self-care, so difficult. It's a simple concept that's very hard to implement. Some of you guys out there are people who like to not focus on yourself at all, and how you distract is to help everybody else in your world. But if you do that too often, you can't really help someone else if you're depleting constantly. So it's like when you go into an airplane, they say, before you help someone else with their mask, put your own oxygen mask on, because otherwise you could pass out while trying to help someone else, correct? Okay, so I have to hold myself accountable with this. I help people all day. It really helps me not to think about my own problems, to help other people with their problems. But if I don't resolve my own problems, it starts to impact how I help others. So it's really important to make time for self-care. And I like this little quote, because some people are like self-care or whatever, but really we're not perfect, okay? So sometimes self-care is taking a hot bath and reading a good book. And other times it's hiding out in the laundry room and shoving fistfuls of both-sized brownie bites into your gaping face hole. No joke. So I always tell people, have a good plethora of ways to do self-care. Sometimes they're going to be more healthy than others. And if you're, mixing it up, it's fine. You can have, like, some days I just want to go home and have a bowl of ice cream. And that's okay. If I did that every day, not so healthy, okay? Some days I want to go home and take a walk. Some days I want to go home and take a nap. Some days I want to go home and call a friend and vent. Some days I want to go home and just, cry. Some of those are more healthy than others, and just know that not all the time are we going to do the perfect thing, but the thing is we're trying just to manage at the time. So just know that you're not always perfect, but trying to do what's best for you. Sleep is a big one. College students notoriously do not sleep well. They don't sleep in a good rhythm. They're up late one night working, the next night they're home early, they're going to bed earlier, late, getting up early for a class, the next morning sleeping until noon. Just know that your rhythms get off, and that really affects stress. So it is a possibility to try to go to sleep within a 2-hour window, like 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. and getting up between like 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. If that's possible, that would be great to try to do that. I know it's not easy, but just putting it out there that it's encouraged. Balanced diet is also very difficult for college students. One, because you don't have a lot of money, so you're spending money on cheap food and just trying to eat when you can on the fly, and it's not always healthy. But I tell people, grab some granola bars, put them in your backpack, so you don't starve and not eat all day and then eat a bunch of brownie bites at 10 o'clock at night. I tell people, I know you're probably not going to eliminate caffeine. I have been drinking coffee almost all day, so all morning. But I drink coffee in the morning, and then I switch to water. I have my water too in the afternoon. So I try to balance that out and reduce and not drink all day, especially after a certain time of day. It's not good to drink in the morning. It's better to drink in the morning and not late in the afternoon because that also impacts your sleep. Balance your life out a little bit. Try to stay connected. It's hard with COVID. Some people feel very isolated. So you want to try to connect in some creative ways. Again, some of you people that want to help everyone, just say no. It's not easy to tell people no, but it's very beneficial for you to tell people no or say no to certain projects, not take on too much when you know you have a big semester coming up. Some education majors have to take 18 hours. So maybe not taking on some extra stuff when you know that that's what's coming up in your semester. So just be mindful of your schedule. Relaxation. This takes many different forms. Okay, so I have a lot of things on there because what works for one doesn't work for someone else. So earlier I said that I'm a very visual person. I like lots of color. My office is filled with different colors that relax me. So because of that, if I see certain colors or the outdoors, my brain kind of is in a more relaxed state. Some people are very auditory. So when they listen to things, it's very calming for them. For some people, it's got to be movement. They have to be pacing or walking or biking or doing some kind of yoga movement, and that relaxes them. Just realize that, again, all three of your senses, even smell can relax you. You have five senses. All five of your senses can help you. But the ones people lean towards the most are visual, auditory, tactile, and smell. We usually don't use taste always to relax, although tasting food does relax us. We have to be careful about that because comfort foods can also re-stress us out if we eat too much of them. So when I look at the body, most of the time when people talk about meditation, they're talking about top down. So using your brain to relax your body. For some people, that's really easy. For a lot of people, that's something that they really have to practice. For most people, they like to use their body to relax their mind. And so that's bottom up. So you're doing something with your body that helps your brain to relax. Either way works, but just know that for some people, one way is easier than another. So when you look at this, deep breathing, movement, or body, using the body, visualization and music is using the brain to relax your body. Does this make sense? There's two different ways here. Deep breathing works because it really slows things down. If I can take a deep breath, it signals to my brain that there is not a bear trying to chase me down and kill me. So it re-signals to my brain that I'm in a safer space and the blood pressure goes down. When you inhale, you activate the sympathetic nervous system that really is more alert. But then when you exhale, you're activating the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the calming system. And the more that you can do those inhales and exhales, if I had a biofeedback machine here, you would see at first the heart rate's up and it looks a little shaky as you're breathing, but as you keep going, it's going to do these like little waves that look way more synchronous. And it's kind of like your body's in a nice little rhythm, right? So deep breathing can be very calming and it's very simple to do. It's one of your easiest. You don't need any fancy stuff. You don't need to go outside and take a long walk. You can sit in your couch or on your bed at your desk and do this. Some people like to count. So I tell people, if you like to count, I always say, do in for 3, out for 4. So again, that exhale is just a little bit longer to try to get that calming system activated. Do that for a few times. In for 3, out for 4. In for 3, out for 4, maybe 4 times. And then go up 4, out 5. In 4, out 5. And then maybe go up to 5, 6. Some people who really love it go up to 7, 8. And then you back it down. So let's say I get up to 5, 6. I do that 5 times. I back it down for inhale for 4, out for 5. Inhale for 4, out for 5, and then back down to 3, 4. There is also an app or a website, breathe.com or calm.com/breathe. And it's got a little bubble that says in and out. So some people, again, are very visual and like to watch something. And when they watch that, they kind of go in that rhythm, and it only takes a couple minutes. This is not something you have to do for an hour. When I'm talking about self-care and relaxation, some of these things are very quick. They're 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. So you can get your body recentered pretty quickly. Again, you don't have to do an hour of yoga. Some people are all or nothing. They're like, well, if I don't have time to do an hour of yoga, I'm not going to do anything. I'm like, you could do 3 minutes of stretching. Literally, you can stretch your chest, expand your chest, and that helps your breathing. You can do, stretch your back, and you'll feel some of those, those muscles release. Just for a few minutes can take you down just a notch. The next thing is movement and rhythm. If you've ever held a baby who's distressed, you don't just hold it in front of you and say, okay, baby, please be quiet. You move it. You rock it, you bounce it, you pace with it. If you're really desperate, you put it in a car seat and drive it around, and it'll fall asleep in the car. Our bodies love rhythm. They're 60% water. And like when we go to the ocean, why a lot of people resonate is the waves go in and they go out. And it's like a rhythm. And our bodies respond to that rhythm. A micro rhythm is just rubbing your hands together, or grabbing a blanket and just feeling that blanket, or petting an animal. And again, just that micro movement can be very relaxing just for a few minutes. If you're feeling lazy, if you're feeling a little bit more energetic, again, a little bit more, you can sway or rock. You see kids that may rock themselves, they're self-soothing. We can do this as adults, and it does help. And then if you're feeling more agitated, I would say get up and pace. And when you start pacing or walking or even running, it's so rhythmic, and it does help our bodies like regulate a little bit. We love rhythm. So just know it as an adult, you can do that and it will help you. Now moving into visualization, guided imagery. Some people can visualize without having someone talk to them and guide them. They could just close their eyes and visualize themselves in a relaxing place. For me, it's the beach or a mountain, hiking, just tons of green, lots of blue. And again, I'm a visual person, so it's very easy for me to bring up those images. Takes you down a notch. I have pictures up in my office that are like from previous vacations, and it's just like, oh yeah, okay. Some people have a hard time with that. They need someone to guide them. There are tons of apps, websites, apps, calm.app. Again, it's so helpful for someone to then speak to you. It can be for 2 minutes. It can be up to 30 to 45 minutes. And they're just talking in soothing tones, and your mind starts to follow what they're saying. And then it guides you into a more peaceful state. Hypnosis is the strongest part of that. That's the most suggestive. Most of these apps are not going to hypnotize you, but they're going to kind of guide you into a more relaxed state. It's helping your brain follow that image. They say your imagination is 10 times more powerful than your willpower. So if you have trouble sleeping and you imagine yourself sleeping restfully, peacefully, I imagine my one cat just totally sprawled out. I mean, he's just so chill. And I'm like, oh yeah, let me just think about him, just how chill he is. And sometimes that helps my body want to follow, and that image helps me. Again, some people are not very visual, so this isn't going to be as effective. If something does not work, stop it. Don't keep doing it. It's helpful to practice and just see if you get better at it. But if something's not as helpful to you, just stop it and try something different, which leads me to the next one. Some people are very responsive to music and sound. Talk radio, music with either words or not. Again, there's so many relaxing sounds out there. If you look up on YouTube, there's a great, it's called Weightless. It's by Marconi Union, and there's an 8-minute, 30-minute, hours long, and it's just sound. And for a lot of people, they will say that it helps them feel more calm. There's been a lot of evidence based that song by them, Weightless, has been really helpful to people. And they say don't even drive while listening to it, because some people it has a more profound effect on them. If you're more attuned to sound, it can be way more effective for you to listen to that. So again, music can boost your mood or it can calm your mood. So just know that what you're taking in will influence you. And so again, if you're feeling really stressed, you can use these relaxation techniques to help you. Practice, play around with them, mix it up and see what works best for you. What works one day might not work another. Mindfulness. Some people find this really difficult, okay? I'm that person. I am always thinking ahead. I'm always planning. It's hard for me to live in the moment. So how I practice mindfulness is really on our campus, on the Armstrong campus at least. It's an arboretum campus. There are always different flowers. And so I will take a 5-10 minute walk to the middle of our campus where there's a lot of different flowers blooming. And some of them smell, some of them don't, but I'm always paying attention. Like, where is that smell coming from? Is it this flower? Is it this flower? Is it this plant? I've learned that if you touch like a wax myrtle plant, it'll smell really refreshing, or rosemary. And so there's little plaques around our campus that tell you what it is. And so I've just been more exploratory. So when you think about mindfulness, what most of us do is, if you've ever been in a car and driven home, you get into your driveway, you're like, I don't remember driving here. You were like in automatic mode, okay? If you think about a little kid or a dog out for a walk, they're like, oh, what's this? Little toddler, what's this? What's this? They're paying attention. They're in the moment. They're sniffing, they're looking, they're touching. So I always think of myself as a little toddler or a dog, like paying attention in that moment. And it just takes a little bit of time. Again, you don't have to take an hour mindfulness walk, but you can do it in just a few minutes. And it's kind of, so sometimes I'll just pay attention to what I can hear, or what I can see, or what I can smell, or what I can feel. So like my water, my coffee, it's steel, it's smooth, it's cold, but if I keep my hands here, it starts to warm up with my body heat. And so this kind of is a grounding. I'm mindful, I'm just paying attention. If I drink my coffee, I can taste it, I can smell it, I can feel it, the heat moving down through my body. Just paying attention to that instead of mindlessly, doing 500 tasks and just gulping down my coffee without paying attention. So it is trying to bring yourself into this moment. And you can do it with anything. Showers are a really good place to be mindful. We get in showers, we're in there for 5-10 minutes trying to get everything done. And I always tell people, feel the temperature of the water, feel the water pressure on your head, on your back, especially. Feel either the heat or the coolness. Play around with the temperature. Feel, like that, the water, how it feels. And for me, I also love the smell of soap and shampoo. So I have my favorite smells in there, I don't like the smell of coconut, so I don't like to buy shampoo or soap with coconut. So I buy the ones that I like, the flowery smells like jasmine, peppermint. I love all those smells. So then my soaps and shampoos have that in it. It can either calm me or energize me. So then, and then I, after a shower, I'm like, oh yes, I feel a little bit better, or a hot bath. So again, just know that you can be mindful in little things that you're doing every day. It doesn't have to be something special. Some people really like to cook, and they're mindful when they cook. They're mindful of the textures of the food, the different smells of the food, the sound when you put it in a pan and it sizzles. And so again, cooking can be a very mindful experience, or it can be very mindless. Sometimes we're doing 5 different things again while we're trying to cook. There can be times where you're like, let me just take this 10 minutes, 30 minutes and focus on what I'm doing. So again, just take time out to just be in the moment. It can become something you do every day just for a few minutes, where you kind of zone back in and stop thinking about all the things you have to do or all the things you didn't get done, and just sit in that moment. And last, time management. I have so many people that are procrastinators, and I want to tell you that some people, this is a natural thing. For some people, it really is hard, even without stress, to do things ahead of time. Their brain naturally functions better under pressure. And if you are that person, just know that then you do still have to manage your time, because if you know you're going to wait till the last minute to study or write a paper, you want to make sure you don't have other engagements or commitments on those days when you know, like, oh gosh, I have 3 meetings and I have to get this paper done by 5 o'clock. So just know that when you still have to plan. So it's okay to procrastinate if that's how your brain functions. I always say kind of accept it and work within it instead of fighting up against it. Again, I'm really big on not fighting against your natural abilities, but kind of just working within them so that they're not harming you as much. So again, we really shouldn't have waited to the last possible moment on the last possible day, but it's kind of our tradition, right? So if that's who you are, I want to help you work within that. And if you are a person that likes to get ahead, time management's already your thing, you could probably skip this segment. I love our phone can be so distracting, but it can also be so helpful for knowing where your time is going. So these are images of an iPhone. You can do this on a Samsung or an Android, where you go into settings, you can look at your battery, and then you can go to your battery like usage, and you can see where you've put your time in the last 24 hours or the last 7 days. If you're like most of my students, Snapchat, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, they're like, oh my gosh, I was on TikTok for like 6 hours. Woo, that's where your time went, right? So it kind of can be a good accountability. Like when we don't know something, we can kind of minimize and be like, oh, that didn't take much time. But if we look at it and we push ourselves to really notice it, then we're like, oh yeah, no, this is not so good. So I'm really big on paying attention on where your time is going so you can manage it. I sometimes give people a schedule that goes from 6 o'clock in the morning to like 3 o'clock in the morning. So hopefully you're sleeping at least 3 hours a day, right? And it's like, you are in class this amount of time, you're at work this amount of time. So you have these other blocks of free time. Some days you don't even work. And it's like, what do I want to do with that time? And so again, if we look at it, sometimes it really helps us to not waste a ton of time, or at least know when we have downtime. Because some people are like, I don't have any downtime. I'm like, let's look, because we all can have time in there. So tips to manage your time. Big one is planning ahead. Even if you're a procrastinator, this can be difficult, but it is helpful to look at your schedule every week and be like, okay, I do have this paper, I do have this test. This test is on Friday, this paper is on Tuesday. There's no way I'm studying for this test before Thursday, because I'm gonna be working on this paper, and then I've got other things on Wednesday, work, meetings, whatever. So it's like Thursday, you're like, okay, your friends want to go out to the bar or downtown or whatever on a Thursday night. You're like, I can't, because I know I'm going to wait till the last minute to study. So just know sometimes you still have to make sacrifices. So I encourage people to kind of know ahead of time, because some people don't look ahead, and then they're like, they get home from going out, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and they're like, oh my gosh, I have this huge task, and then they're up all night. So kind of just pay attention, please. Prioritize. Some things are more important. Some classes are more difficult than others. Although I've seen people focus so much on a calculus class that they end up failing a psych class that should have been really easy, but they didn't even read at all and were failing some tests. So again, prioritize, but don't eliminate, studying it all for a certain class. But some classes are going to take more of your time and energy, so you may need to prioritize. Eliminate distractions. So if your phone is a distraction, I encourage you to turn it on silent, turn it upside down, check it only every 30 minutes, set a timer, and let yourself kind of focus for a certain amount of time, and then reward yourself by being able to check your phone. If your notifications are going off consistently, you're really going to have a hard time to be able to focus. Be flexible. Again, sometimes you have to give up things. You have to change things around. Things happen last minute. Professor changes the syllabus thing. Now your test is backed up, which is great in the short term, but in the long term, now you have 3 tests this next week or 4 tests in the next week. So just know that if you're a procrastinator, then it's going to make the next week horrible. Know yourselves. Know what works. Know what doesn't work. Again, something can be really easy for one person. It's really difficult for another. So don't beat yourself up. Work within your skill set and do the best you can. But just know if you manage your time, it does reduce stress. And actually, that's it. I didn't have my last slide because we're not doing the evaluation on the slide. There may be an evaluation in the comment section. So I encourage you, if you do want to evaluate this presentation, that would be great. I would appreciate your feedback. Again, my name is Becca Smith. I'm with the Counseling Center at the Georgia Southern University. I thank you so much for attending Stress Management. I hope this has been helpful. If you have questions, please reach out to us at the Counseling Center. We can help you, provide you more assistance or resources that are needed. Have a great day. Bye.